Hello and welcome to today's event. My name is Brenda Holt and I'm the Associate State Director of Community Outreach for the Arizona State Office of AARP. We are the nation's largest nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to empowering people 50 and older to choose how they live as they age. With a nationwide presence and nearly 38 million members across the nation and over 900,000 right here in Arizona, AARP strengthens communities and advocates for what matters most to families, such as health security, financial stability, and personal fulfillment. During the month of September, we will be focusing on thriving in the job market, where we will showcase AARP's relevance as a wise friend and a fierce defender, helping workers find a job while fighting on their behalf against ageism. We will provide tips, advice, and resources to help you stay competitive in today's job market and to mitigate the impact that the coronavirus pandemic has had on employment and income. Navigating today's ever-changing job market can be tough, but we're here to help you through it. Please visit us at aarp.org/work for tips, tools, and resources on how to stay competitive in the job market. You can also visit us at aarp.org/AZ to find out other activities and events that are being provided by the Arizona State Office. Again, we'd like to thank you for joining us today.
Your host for the night, Arizona's very own hip historian himself, Marshall Shore.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I want to welcome you as we get ready for Arizona History Happy Hour. We've got an exciting night for you tonight. Oh my gosh. So, today is a beautiful day of September 16th. September's already halfway over. How did we even get here? So I want to welcome you all as you're all sitting out there watching our Arizona History Happy Hour. Thank you so much for being here. Now, I know some of you are watching it on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. It's all good to watch. Some of you may have discovered there's a little chat session off to the side, so feel free to throw comments in there. Now, one of the things you can do is you can always reach out to me via Facebook. We'll go into that. But I do want to tell you, there's some really cool stuff that kind of happened today. So back here in Arizona, back in 1962, you've got Four Corners. They dedicated kind of one of the first monuments to that was actually done in the gravel. Now it's a fancy brass plaque with all this terrazzo concrete around it and everything else. But that was kind of the first foray into creating it as a destination where lots of people go get a photo of themselves standing in one place, but being in 4 states at the same time. Now it is also Rock Collectors Day. Whenever I think of rock collecting, I think of the movie Long Trailer with Lucy and Ricky as they are driving around, especially through Arizona, through old, and she's been collecting rocks and stashing them in the trailer. I think everybody has a small rock collection because you're so tempted to just pick up a piece of something that just kind of holds that memory. And years later, that rock can refresh your memory and it's right back there. Now, it is also Step Family Day. So it allows all families, through however they've come together, to celebrate themselves and each other. Now, today is also Mexican Independence Day. Back in 1810, this day celebrates their independence from Spain. It is also National Play-Doh Day. Play-Doh came about, originally it was meant as a how to clean wallpaper. You would roll over your wallpaper back when people had gas and oil furnaces, and I guess it would leave a residue. And so you would use this product to do that. And as people started getting rid of furnaces that did that, they were trying to figure out, well, how do we spike this? And so a teacher slash sister-in-law said, well, why don't you use it as a kid's toy? Look at what I've done with my kids in this. From there, it went on Captain Kangaroo and became the huge national icon that it is today. Now, also today is not just Guacamole Day. It is also SpaceX launched their first yesterday, the first civilian crew. And so today they've been around the Earth 5.5 times. And they've got a few more days up there to do some other research on things. But I think that's really cool that they're doing that. Oops. So what can you expect? Well, every week we do a little bit of show and tell. We do some trivia. We do a little bit of Arizona music. We always talk about a small town as well as a beverage. And we always have an amazing guest. And today is no exception to that. So if this is your first time here, you're probably wondering, who is that man on my screen and why is he there? Well, my name is Marshall Shore. I got to Arizona via New York City. I was there for about a decade working in an old Carnegie building as a librarian and decided to trade the wilds of Brooklyn for the Wild West and started working at a little library in South Phoenix that now is in pretty fancy digs, not far from where it was. But one of the cool things about that community was there was this rich oral tradition of how the community evolved. And that was one of the influence that really heavily kind of got me talking about kind of that modern history that we're talking about now. Now, when we got here, we promptly moved into a beautiful 1956 ranch. Now, when we moved in, it was oh so many tones of beige. And happy to say it is a simplified two-tone, seafoam and cantaloupe. And inside, why, it's a veritable cornucopia of vintage. Why, that's what my kitchen looks like today. Lots of buttercream yellow tile in the kitchen, matching appliances, and fun stuff like that. But as soon as I got here, all I kept hearing about how there was no history here. And I knew that wasn't true because every time I would go on an adventure, I would find, whether it was close to home or far flung from home, I would run into so many amazing people, places, and stories. And so that kind of got me going as well. Now, there's also that post-war boom that I think in so many ways made the Arizona that we all know and love today. All those GIs that either were stationed here, trained here, and after the war, they were moving here in huge numbers, looking for a whole new way of life, which many of them found. Now, I'm also known as the hip historian, and that means I get to play a lot with Arizona history. And so it's been an exciting few days. So hopefully everyone has gotten their ARP newsletter with a little blurb in it about just what we're doing right now every Thursday night. We also have haunted tours. We kicked our first one off last Saturday. The next one coming up is October 2nd, and that is a little walking tour around downtown as we get a chance to talk about kind of a spookier side of downtown Phoenix. Now, also, we are putting together an event at the Pioneer Cemetery about honoring our ancestors. So there will be more information about that. It's just starting to fall together, as well as there is a Haunted Phoenix bus tour coming up on October 23rd. And I'm so excited. So next month is the 90th anniversary of the Winnie, Ruth, Judd trunk murders. And I was trying to find a way to commemorate it that would be something really dignifying, I think, of a 90th anniversary. And so I think we may have hit upon a few things. So it looks like we'll be doing probably getting access to the house, as well as hearing from a family that was well connected to Winnie, Ruth, Judd. And so we're trying to figure out kind of quite what that looks like. So hopefully in the next week, we'll be able to actually say, hey, here's what's going on, and get ready to learn some amazing stuff. Also coming up the end of this month on Tuesday, September 28th, I'm going to be out in Goodyear talking about kind of the history of Goodyear. And we just booked today. The Desert Botanical Gardens has been doing for the last few years something called Strange Garden. And so I'm going to be out there telling kind of family-friendly ghost stories or haunting stories. So nothing to scare the kids, but something to just kind of entice them into enjoying a spooky side of the Desert Botanical Gardens. And then coming up in November, we are going to be kicking off Voices of LGBT, which is going to be a monthly storytelling virtual event. So there'll be more information rolling out about that as well. And I just sent an email off to the Emmy crowd today because I have no idea when I'm supposed to hear about whether or not the Emmy that I'm up for. How do I find out? I can't even find the category. They say nonfiction, but I have not been able to find anything about it. So trying to track that down. And so you never know. There might be a watch party somewhere if I can figure that part out. We shall see. So if you don't get a chance to say something that you wanted to say, you can always reach out via Facebook, Instagram, email, or even through the website. You can ping me. So it's all good because I love to hear from you because, you know, this is really where I get my best stories. That's why I really started even doing this weekly happy hour, just as a way to engage people, share stories, and that way folks share stories back with me and tell me all kinds of amazing things. So if you are watching on Facebook, I will ask you to click on the little share button down below so that way all your friends can see how much fun we are getting ready to. And Tom, I am there. I'm at the Desert Botanical Gardens on, I should probably let me throw this up. So Tom asks, when am I going to be at the gardens? So I'm going to be there the Friday, Saturday before Halloween. They're doing a Thursday night, which is going to be adults only. It's kind of a first date night, but I'm busy Thursday doing just what we're doing. So I couldn't say yes to that. So I will be there Friday and Saturday. All right. So I talk about being from New York, but I really grew up in a little tiny town in Indiana of about 25 people. And so with that, I kind of had this affinity for small towns, which Arizona is full of. And tomorrow, actually, I don't want to, I guess, so tomorrow I'm actually taking a road trip to Strawberry, but I think that's probably going to be the town we talk about next week, just because I'll have recently been there. Oops, and I just scooted by everything. So today we are going to talk, I was going through the list of cities. I was thinking Rocky Point, but I was like, well, that's not in Arizona. But then I found Rock Point, Arizona, which is part of the Navajo Reservation. It's up in Apache County, has a population of just under 600 folks. And initially it was named for a windmill that was there. But as the community built irrigation, got equipment, and started building other things, they decided to actually change it to be something that was more indicative. And so there's why they call it Rock Point, which looks really beautiful. And I'm like, well, now I want to go to Rock Point as well. It also, as they were building things, they also, in the early 90s, they built a rodeo. And so they do a lot of different events up there as well. And one of the things I loved is that I was kind of like plugging away. It's like, whenever I go to rodeos, all I see are adults. And I found all these kids. So this young woman is Odessa Barlow. She's been competing at the national level from Rock Point. And she's been placing very high, in some cases number 1, in the National Junior Rodeo. So I think I'm going to need to go to Rock Point. So adventure ahead. So, it would never be a happy hour without a libation. And today we have a really fun drink. And so let's see. There we go. So this is called the Moontini. And so created by PJ over at the Valley Ho, even though he's actually not in town right now. And so his staff does a really cool thing. They basically pre-make my cocktail. So all I have to do is pour, plop in a garnish, and there I have a Moontini. Now you might be wondering, because my bartender over here is not going to tell you what's in it because he doesn't really know. He doesn't really talk that much. He's kind of the silent sort. And so what do you think is in a Moontini? It's got a little bit of mezcal, Jamaica, lemon juice, lime juice, and agave nectar. And it's I love the smokiness of the mezcal. I mean, anything with mezcals, I think, is a really good cocktail. So again, PJ hit it out of the ballpark again. All right, so now we have a special guest on tonight, and I want to bring on Niki. Oh, and here, there we go. Hello.
Hi, Marshall. How are you?
I am good. How's your night going?
It's going very well. I'm very fascinated by your introduction. Now I want to have a Moontini and rub Play-Doh on wallpaper.
I had no idea. I mean, it's like the quirky things you learn as you start plugging around and researching. I was like, who knew Play-Doh was initially to clean your wallpaper?
I would have never guessed that. That would
And
have been like the last thing.
And then Captain Kangaroo made it a big to-do. So by putting it on the Captain Kangaroo show. So
it's amazing. It's amazing. And also, who knew we had like a budding rodeo star or even a town called Rock Point?
I know. I was like, and it was actually I didn't realize there was such a thriving kind of junior rodeo scene, which I think is is really amazing, and they can kind of grow up in that world. So using skills that they're using, and again building community.
Yeah, and does it seem like something that the community revolves around? I mean, it's a tiny town, really.
It's a tiny town, and so really, I mean, the rodeo grounds are like, I think, probably the biggest thing in town.
Wow, that would be cool. So I hope you go, and if you go, you have to tell us all about it.
Oh, I will. I'll take tons of photos.
Of course.
Because that's what you do.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Niki, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I have been living in Phoenix for most of my life. I was actually born in Indiana, but moved out here.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was born in Indianapolis, and my parents moved out here when I was a baby. So I grew up in Phoenix, went back to Indiana for about 7 years during my teenage years, and then came back to attend ASU. So I just love it here. I've always considered it home. I love almost everything about Phoenix, even the heat. I even love the heat, as bizarre as that sounds. And I've been a writer, a professional writer here, primarily a journalist for probably the past 16 or 17 years. I've worked for Phoenix New Times, Phoenix Magazine, Echo Magazine, which is now Out Voices Phoenix. So working for those outlets has given me opportunity to travel around various parts of the state and discover all of these weird kind of quirky places. Never been to Rock Point, though. So I learned something all the time, continuously, and to meet a lot of interesting people. One thing that will become quickly apparent to everyone who's joining us tonight, if they don't know already, is I'm a huge Phoenix Mercury fan, our WNBA basketball team.
And so you should show off your shirt, and I will.
My vintage shirt, Phoenix Mercury Basketball Club, yes. And I have some rings too, but I'm not going to show off too much. That's basically the gist of me. And
I feel like, oh, look,
am
I
a
have some
freelance
rings.
writer now.
Look, I have some
Exactly.
rings.
I have some. I have some. Well, now I have to put them on because I feel like I talked about them, and
I was
so
going to say, I'm like, you teased us, and then,
I have to show them off. There we
oh my
go.
gosh.
Yeah. So they're just replicas of the three championship rings, 2007, 2009, and then 2014.
Wow.
Yeah. So that looked kind of gangsta for a minute, didn't it?
Indeed.
All these big knuckles in your face.
Mickey OG.
Yeah. Oh, and I should also warn you that I have two cats, one of which is on the table right now close to my laptop. So we may get a cat cameo.
Ah, very cool. Well, and
So,
so
and
I
thanks
know
for
you
having me
have
on,
some,
Marshall.
I'm sorry?
And thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you on. So, and you've come up with some really great trivia.
Thanks. Thanks.
So,
Yeah, I was inspired.
indeed, and it shows. So now with our trivia, what I like about doing this is the fact that it's not just, a lot of when you go into bar trivia, it's all about what's the answer. And then they just kind of cut away and you never know really what was the correct answer or why that was the right answer. Well, that is not the case what we do right here on Arizona History Happy Hour, because we are going to go through all the questions and multiple choice answers, and then we will explain the answers. So that's where I think all the fun really happens, is in that, because we're going to have some great stories coming out of this. So now when you keep track of your answers, you can do it either pad and paper, you can do it on a hot dog with some mustard, because never ketchup, and just have fun. That is indeed the goal of what we are here for, as we get a chance to learn some great stories as well. All right. Oh, so our first topic is sports. I'm shocked, Nikki, that this would be the first topic.
Yeah, and I don't know what team I would possibly want to ask questions about.
All right. So our first question is, which former Phoenix Mercury player from the original team in 1997 later became an assistant coach for the team? All right. So was that A, Cheryl Miller, B, Bridget Pettis, C, Nancy Lieberman, or D, Michelle Timms? So one of those folks was not only a player, but later became an assistant coach for the team. And who was it? All right, moving on to question 2. Who was the head coach of the Phoenix Mercury when they won their first WNBA championship back in 2004?
Oh my gosh.
And do you have that ring?
Yeah, and that's the wrong year. I did put 2004 on here, and
Oh,
I'll tell you why I did that. There's a story behind why I did that. But no, their first championship was actually 2007, which is what I have here. Yes. Diana Taurasi was drafted to the team in 2004, which is why that's a year of note.
all right. So, okay.
So sorry.
That
Oh, my
first,
fellow Mercury fans are going to throttle me when they see me.
all right. So in 2007, that first WNBA championship, who was the head coach? Was it A, Paul Westhead, B, Carrie Graff, C, Linda Sharp, or D, John Shoemate? All right. So who was head coach when they first won their first WNBA championship back in 2007? All right. Question 3. What animal is the Phoenix Mercury mascot Scorch? Is it A, a bat, B, a dinosaur, C, a mole, or D, none of the above? So what do you think Scorch is? It's one of those choices. All right. Moving on to question. Oh, and now we have places. Oh my gosh, we're just going all over the place. All right. So, question 4. What enchanted storybook land, created in Tucson in the 1920s and 30s, became a nonprofit back in 1945? Was it A, Trail Dust Town, B, Magic Carpet, C, Valley of the Moon, or D, Enchanted Island? So one of those storybook lands down in Tucson became a nonprofit in 45. Which do you think it is? No, right. Moving on to the hump question. What's the last remaining permanent drive-in movie theater in Arizona? And we had to add that word permanent in because there's been a whole upcropping through COVID of just like little pop-up drive-in theaters.
Yeah, like popcorn.
Yes. All right. So is the last remaining permanent drive-in movie theater, is it A, Silver Dollar Drive-In, B, the Glendale 9 West Wind Drive-In, or C, Vale Big Sky Drive-In, or D, the Roundup Drive-In? So one of those is the last remaining drive-in movie theater with screens that you can watch movies on and listen to on your car radio. All right. Oh, and now we're moving on to some music. All right. The father of which famous Arizona singer owned a concert venue, Compton Terrace, and it was demolished in 2010? All right. So was that famous singer, was it A, Alice Cooper, B, Linda Ronstadt, C, Stanford Clark, or D, Stevie Nicks? All right, so whose father owned Compton Terrace? All right, question 7. What was the first music recorded ever made in Arizona? So was it A, Ed Lee Nate, B, Dwayne Eddy, C, Charles Mingus, or D, Billy Maxwell? What was the first music recorded in Arizona? All right, question 8. Which 2 famous heavy metal singers are neighbors in Paradise Valley? All right. Do you think it's A? But without the rings on, it kind of loses the effect.
True, it doesn't have that pimp effect, that baller
Exactly.
effect. Sorry.
So are those neighbors, are they A, Alice Cooper and Rob Halford, B, Stevie Nicks and Joan Jett, C, Grace Slick and Lucy Lamode, D, Axl Rose and Bret Michaels? So 2 of those folks are neighbors in Paradise Valley. Who do you think it is? All right. Of these famous writers, who has sold the most books? A, Irma Mombeck. She was a humorist. B, Stephanie Myers, the Twilight series. Or C, Zane Grey, Western adventure writer extraordinaire. So of those, who do you think has sold the most books? All right. And as we get ready for our last question, what notable Native American pop art painter lived in a house in Scottsdale marked with an Egyptian-looking obelisk? Was it Fritz Shoulder, A, Douglas Miles, B, Steve Yazzie as C, or our last option is D, at Brent Learned? All right. So who do you think had a house in Scottsdale with an Egyptian-looking obelisk All right. Well, while you are all trying to figure out what your final answer is, we're going to take a little bit of a music break. And so what we're going to do is when I first got to Arizona, when I actually was working at Harmon Library in South Phoenix, probably one of the first musicians I heard about in Arizona was someone Small Paul. Basically, it was Small Paul and Big Pete Pearson. And so I thought, today we're going to talk a little bit about Small Paul. Now, he was a performer here in Arizona in the R&B soul music circuits. Since childhood, he had been singing in church and always entertaining crowds with his abilities and skill. As a teen, in the early to mid 60s, he sang with the Arizona-based group Dyke and the Blazers. Their big national hit was Funky Broadway, and he got a flavor of the energy, the stage lights, the screams of the audience. From there, he went on to work with such folks as Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, Joe Tex, Sam and Dave, Otis Redding, and the Temptations. He also then went on, he had a band, it was Small Paul and the Drivin' Wheels. Now, people always said that a huge part of his work ethic is that it was always to ramp up the crowd. And that's what he was known for, was being able to control the crowd and get everybody's toes a-tapping, hips a-swaying, whatever it took. He made it happen. So if you want to, you can actually find some videos of him on YouTube. I don't play those since we don't have copyright. I don't want to infringe on anyone's copyright. So you can go listen to him, and it's pretty amazing. So, but wait to do that until after the show. Don't do it now, because you'll miss one of the best parts. Is we're going to go through the answers of the trivia. All right. So which former Mercury player from the original team also became an assistant coach? And it's Bridget Pettis. So what can you tell us about her?
Well, Bridget Pettis is still a really big part of Phoenix culture. She runs a nonprofit called Project Roots Arizona. You can go to projectrootsaz.org after the show and check it out. They have urban farms at spaces of opportunity, and they participate in the farmers markets, and they have a soup kitchen. And Bridget also teaches yoga out at the urban farms. So,
oh wow,
yeah, she's really about nutrition and living a healthful lifestyle. And she is from Indiana as well. She's from Gary, Indiana. Yeah, and so she's been trying to expand these kind of food and nutrition education, teaching people in food impoverished areas how to grow their own food, even if you don't have access to land. So they'll have like a gardening box that you can put on your balcony, and they'll show people what they can grow in that at a certain time of year. And she continues to pop up at Phoenix Mercury games every so often as well. She actually was a coach in the WNBA for different teams up until 2020. She was an assistant coach for the Chicago Sky, and she elected not to go to the bubble where all of the teams were playing during the pandemic, and she focused on just her farming here and her yoga classes and just expanding the community here. So it's great that she came here for a fledgling basketball team and a brand new league back in 1997, and now she runs such an important agricultural and community-based nonprofit here.
So, and one thing I should have probably mentioned at the beginning was we're right in the middle of Phoenix Vegan Week. So there's if you go,
That's right.
so
It's
I've
Vegan
already been to a
Restaurant
couple
Week.
museums. I've already been to a couple restaurants to support that. So
Oh, that's great. Yeah, they all have really good pre-fee menus.
mhm,
And it's I highly recommend it. I'm glad that you checked out some restaurants because it's really if people are risk averse to trying vegan food, they can try an array of vegan food from all
right,
kinds of places at a price point that's not really dangerous, you know?
right. That's the nice thing about kind of the whole pre-fee thing is it just kind of allows you that chance to dabble.
Yeah, yeah. What have you had so far that you really liked?
I went to Giving Tree over on 7th Street, really good.
Oh
And then
yeah.
Early Bird down on like 16th Street and Broadway.
Oh, I've heard so many good things about Early Bird Vegan, and I love talking to their chef, but I have not had a chance to try it yet. Did you like it? Did you get a po'
Yeah.
boy?
So no, I was actually there for breakfast. I was actually meeting a
Okay.
friend, and it was like I'd been wanting to go and never found myself in that side of town. And Bev was like, I was like, well, hey, let's go there. So I had like a fake. Well, it wasn't fake. It was an English McMuffin. Well, it was a. I don't want to use a professional name. I'm
Is
like,
it a plant-based breakfast sandwich?
yeah, English muffin, egg, and cheese,
Ooh,
and ham. So it was quite tasty. So yeah. So I
that's
definitely want to
good.
go back.
That sounds awesome. It's my
And
kind of
then
breakfast.
had a delicious cup of coffee as well. So
Oh,
fun
that's
was had by
amazing.
everyone.
Good. Yeah, take advantage of the vegan restaurant week for sure.
Well, it was also nice because when I went to the website, it was talking about places I didn't know. So that's why I was like, oh, well, now we need to go try there and there. So put some new things on the repertoire.
Yeah, always. Yeah, it's great. Expanding. Valley's
And
always expanding in every way.
indeed. All right. So question two.
I did it again. The 2004. Sorry.
All right. So who was the head coach of the Phoenix Mercury when they won their first WNBA championship in 2007?
Paul Westhead. So, interestingly, I was covering the Phoenix Mercury for the first time in 2007 when they made that championship run for Phoenix New Times. I wrote a cover story about Diana Taurasi, and so I had access to a lot of the practices and behind the scenes things. And it was interesting because Paul Westhead had been a coach for the now defunct Sonics in Seattle and the NBA, and uh, he really there was such a huge generational difference between Coach Westhead and all of the players on the Mercury at the time. It was a very young team. And so, when he wanted to inspire them before a playoff game, he played this song. You know, the 1973 Dobie Gray song, Drift Away? It's kind of a hidden classic, but it definitely sounds like something old people would listen to if it's like really young ears. And so the players kind of chuckled about that. And then he actually showed up to one playoff game with mismatched shoes. And he said he'd gotten dressed in the dark that morning before going to the airport. And he had a left shoe and a right shoe, so at least that was good. But one was brown leather and the other was black leather. So Coach Westhead was definitely, the team won their first championship under him and their second championship under what had been his assistant coach. So he left quite a legacy.
And mismatched shoes.
hmm
All right. So what animal is the Phoenix Mercury mascot Scorch?
He's none of the above. So this is a weird little point of frustration for me and like every other Phoenix Mercury fan. Like what is Scorch? And no one will ever give an answer. They're just like, oh well, Scorch is Scorch. We're like, well, is it a dog? Is it someone said a fox stuck in perpetual asphyxiation? It's just this giant purple creature. So I guess Scorch is just a cryptid. Maybe Scorch is just some kind of new life form that we haven't discovered yet. We do know that as a mascot, Scorch is characterized as male, which is interesting. And you know how sports teams are, they're super protective about their mascots. And like, it's almost like they don't want you to think there's a human that exists inside that costume because like just this character has to be as real as possible. So I've heard a couple of things about the human being that may or may not be inside Scorch. Um, but I'll keep those to myself. But I tell you, if I did know what Scorch was, I would share that because it's one of the great mysteries of sports.
And so we also have Kenyatta who's watching. And when we start talking about wearing two different shoes, she's like, she's done that. I've done that before too. Just got dressed and then showed up and somebody was like, and it took me a while to say anything because at first they thought I was doing like a style thing because they were the same style of shoe but just different colors. So,
and it does seem like something you would do because you're really good with the different patterns and things too. So
right. So I said, well, yes, I meant to do it. When in fact that was not the case at all.
Everyone's like, brilliant. That's great.
All right. So question 4. What enchanted storybook land created in Tucson in the 20s and 30s became a nonprofit in 1945?
And so it's C, Valley of the Moon, which, Marshall, have you ever been to Valley of the Moon near Tucson?
I have not, but it's now on my list of must-go-to places.
It is one of the most intriguing, strangest places I've ever been in the state. I found it because I was writing a big feature for Phoenix Magazine at the time. I was managing editor, and I was writing a feature called Hidden Arizona. And the whole goal of it, and it was like a 20-page feature, the whole goal was to find all of these unknown places and people and things and kind of unearth them. And so I came across Valley of the Moon and I went there at like 10 a.m. on a Saturday or something. I couldn't get anyone on the phone. I couldn't get anyone to email back. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just show up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. And no one was there at first, so I was just kind of looking through the chain link fence at it's amazing because it's a huge lot and it just has all of these strange recycled structures, some like a mixture of like clay and brick and chicken wire and glass, and then there are things that the person who constructed Valley of the Moon, George Legler, he had purchased some parts of a mini golf course that had closed down. So you know how like at Castles and Coasters they have the really cool like mini cities and trees and things and decor that you shoot balls in. So he got a bunch of those, and so they're positioned all around the place in weird areas, and like there's a stage, and it just had a very almost surreal, frozen in time feeling, like I was in the 60s visiting like some hippie commune. It's kind of what it felt like. But then someone showed up who just happened to be a volunteer caretaker, and they gave me a little tour and told me all about George Legler's legacy. He died, many, many years ago. But it's a nonprofit, and so it continues to have caretakers. They continue to put on productions, family-friendly productions, at the outdoor theater there and give tours. So it's just amazing to me that this place has been around for so long and not very many people have heard of it.
Well, and it's funny, Knight's Cocktail was actually created with this in mind because the mezcal we used was from Oaxaca. And there, the culture of mezcal is often symbolically tied to the rabbit. And so I guess one of the things he did early on was he was trying to raise rabbits that had more meat on them to feed people during the war.
Yes, that is one of the things that he did. That was, I think, his postal clerk career.
So yeah, so that's why I had that's why I threw in the little SpaceX stuff because I was
Oh,
trying to like
that's
throw
great.
people off the scent of. I
But
didn't
that's
want to give
great.
away
We
the
come
answer.
full circle too. It's like a labyrinthine circle, but we came full circle. I love it.
All right. All right. So, what is the last remaining permanent drive-in movie theater here in Arizona?
It's the Glendale 9 West Wind Drive-In, and I love this place. Everybody who knows me knows, like, I'm always like, have you been to a drive-in movie? You must come to Glendale 9 with me. And part of it is nostalgic for me because I grew up going to this drive-in with my parents. It opened in 1979, and I went with my family almost every weekend. And one of the first movies I saw there was the original Terminator when it opened in 1984. And that was back, like nowadays, as you mentioned before, you sit in your car and you get the audio on your car radio and it's nice and crisp and clean. But back in 1984, you parked next to this speaker, this boxy speaker that was mounted on a post with a wire, and you pulled it off the post and you latched it. You rolled your window halfway down and you latched this boxy metal speaker onto your window. And the sound was pretty terrible, but the worst part was people, including my father one night, would forget sometimes at the end of a movie, especially if you were sitting there for a while, you're waiting for the lot to clear out or whatever, and just start to drive away with this speaker still attached to your window, breaking the speaker and your window. So thank goodness we're digital now, we just tune into a radio frequency.
I know those speakers were so bad. Oh,
Yeah, but I love it. I still go there frequently.
I have been there as well. So yeah, so no, I love going.
It's awesome. Yeah, and they have that old the concession stand, that octagonal. It still looks like it's straight out of the 70s. So
Right. All right. So question 6. The father of which famous Arizona singer owned the concert venue Compton Terrace that closed and was demoed back in 2010?
and that's good old Stevie Nicks, born in Phoenix, and her father Jess Nicks not only owned Compton Terrace, but he was also chairman of the board at the Arizona Heart Institute. He was on the board for 30 years. And so people who've been in the Valley for a while might remember for many years Stevie Nicks did an annual huge on a Heart Institute called Stevie Nicks and Friends. And I was fortunate enough to see it one year when it was at what was then America West Arena. It's changed names several times since then, the current Footprint Center. And that year she had Chris Isaac, Don Henley, Lindsey Buckingham, Sheryl Crow. Yeah, it was just insane the amount of people, superstars that she had with her. So that was fun. People may not know Stevie Nicks, lived here for many years in Paradise Valley as she relocated to Santa Barbara in what she calls a rock and roll condo about 6 years ago. So we miss Stevie.
Indeed, but keeping with the theme of music, what was the first music record ever made in Arizona?
So I'll try to tell this story pretty quickly, but it's Billy Maxwell, who lived in the White Mountains areas with her family, and she played with her family members in the White Mountain Orchestra. And back in 1929, they saw an ad for a recording session for Victor Talking Machine Company. And they took this old car. You can imagine in 1929 what kind of car they had and what the roads were like. These dusty back roads. They drove from Arizona on these dusty back roads to El Paso, Texas, to record 6 songs, which were the first songs ever recorded in Arizona.
She was also the first female to ever do country western.
At the time who found her. She'd been kind of buried in history, and he was looking for the record and she was looking for him, and they found the story together. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Question 8. Which two famous heavy metal singers are neighbors in Paradise Valley?
Now I can do this with the rings.
Okay, do that again. Let's do that so that way people can see your OG skin. Yeah, now you're talking.
Yeah. Yeah, so Rob Halford and Judas Priest, I actually found that out from Rob Halford. We were on the phone one day, there was some flooding or something, he was on tour, and he was saying, yeah, I need to go check on my home in Paradise Valley and make sure it hasn't slid down the hill. And then he told me, that, I'm actually neighbors with Alice Cooper, and sometimes I go out to check my mail or something, and I'll see Alice out there. Or I'll go to get the newspaper. I guess Rob Halford still reads the newspaper. So it's kind of fun to imagine them having like banter over morning coffee and newspapers.
Talking about the good old days of rock and roll.
Exactly.
All right. Question 9. Of the authors that we had listed, who has sold the most books?
Well, I probably doesn't really surprise anyone that it's Stephanie Meyer. But what surprised me was how many books she sold. That she sold 29 million books just in 2008, and then 26.5 million in 2009, and then probably several other million in the years before and after that. And she actually inspired a genre of geek rock called Twi-rock. So there are bands that are like Twilight themed, like the Bella Cullen Project and the Twilight Music Girls and Bella Rocks.
Wow.
If you're into that sort of thing, you can get really into that sort of thing.
And you can not just read books, but you can go see movies.
You can go see movies. You can listen to the Mitch Hansen Band or Be Safe Bella. Yep.
So you can just geek out to Twilight.
Exactly, which I have never read nor seen, but I have heard enough about to feel like I have.
Indeed, I've got a friend's birthday coming up, and so I think what they're going to do is, I've not seen any of the Twilight movies. I think I'm going to get a chance to see one. So,
Ooh, let me know how it is. I mean, I have friends that just really, really love them, so could be good.
maybe I'll bring along Spotify to a little to musically enhance the event.
There you go. You could do a Twi-rock playlist.
Indeed.
You totally should. Great.
All right. So, what notable Native American pop art painter lived in a house in Scottsdale marked with an Egyptian-looking obelisk?
So that was the one and only Fritz Shoulder. And the story that I have behind this, and Marshall, you might be able to relate. Have you been in the basements of many of our Arizona museums to see what they have in the vaults that never makes it out on the floor or exhibition?
Sadly, not as many as I would like.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
that I
you got
haven't
to get in
tried.
there. You got to get in there because it's amazing. And some of these museums have like whole other museums in storage. And I was struck particularly, I was doing a story for Phoenix Magazine again on museum basements, local museum basements, and exploring like what's in the basement. And in the basement of the Heard Museum, we went downstairs and there's so much there, just hundreds and hundreds of it. Barry Goldwater's Kachina dolls and furniture and pottery, and just kind of hanging on a back wall was just like this Fritz Shoulder painting. It's just like hanging there, and I'm like, oh, that's just hanging on the basement wall. It was just amazing to me. And then I think when we went to the Arizona History Museum, there was a Maynard Dixon just hanging on the wall in the basement. So You never know. Maybe that should be an exhibition. Like, here's the stuff that's been hanging on the wall in the basement. The basement exhibition.
Oh, that would be really fun.
Yeah. They need to do that. Museums need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like a mysteries of the museum type thing.
Oh my gosh, that would be so awesome. And you should totally like go do a podcast or a video or something at some of these places. Like, oh, I imagine the lore that
Oh,
some
yeah.
of those objects must have.
Well, it was funny. One time I did with Scottsdale Public Art, they were doing an event based on bicycles. And they said, oh, can you find Arizona bike history? And so I found, so after World War II, the U.S. had sent all these train cars to France during the war. And as a thank you, they sent them their seed cars, which were train cars full of stuff that they were giving in every state. And so one of them was like a 1940s Peugeot bicycle.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, well, can I borrow that? And
the bicycle?
The bicycle. And there was no response. And a few days later, I got a, no one's ever asked before. Yes, you can. You can never touch the bicycle. You can only touch it with white gloves. And I think they thought that would be a detractor, that who would want to carry around a bicycle in Scottsdale with white gloves? Oh no, that was just part of the show. It was like,
yes.
Here I am walking on the canal toting my Peugeot bicycle.
Oh, that's amazing. Somebody got a photo. Tell me somebody got a photo.
Indeed.
Good.
And so, yeah. So, Nikki, thank you so much. Well, actually, wait a minute. I know everyone's going to wonder, because we always ask a question at the end, how did people do on the trivia? Because, you know, some of they might have known, but they might not know all of it. But I always say, you know, we're all winners because look at these great stories that we have. And I mean, now it's like, I want to go to Tucson and visit Valley of the Moon. I mean, they're putting on a play. They had I started researching. I was like, oh my gosh, how have I never heard about this place? And why have I not been? Because I love storybook lands.
You would absolutely love it. And there's a rock labyrinth not far away. They can tell you where it is at Valley of the Moon. You can walk to it from there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I did go when Magic Carpet, miniature golf, when that closed down, I went for the last night of doing a round of golf.
Oh, wow.
Before basically everything got kind of broken up and all the structures went elsewhere.
Oh, that's so cool you got to do that. One last
Indeed.
time.
So, Nikki, thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of your passions about Arizona with us.
Thank you for having me, Marshall. This was super fun.
Indeed. Well, have a great rest of your night.
Thank you. You too.
See you later.
And I'm going to get to Rock Point, and you get to Valley of the Moon.
Indeed. Yeah, I can hardly wait to make it down to Tucson. I mean, there's so much I need to do in Tucson. I think I'm going to do like an overnight in November.
That would be
because they have the Ignite Sign Museum. And so they do a workshop where all the neon that they're not using, you can then build a lamp out of it to take home that lights up.
Oh my gosh. Oh, you have to do that.
So that's I'm like, I want to get there for that and then plan a whole weekend of events. So.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
And Valley of the Moon is definitely now on that list.
Good. Well, I can't wait to hear your impressions.
All right, Nikki, thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Oh my gosh, what fun. So many good stories. So now if you didn't believe why you should click on share, now you will see why you should click on share. So now we're going to do some show and tell. So, you know, so Arizona history. So these little creatures, these quail, or also, you know, I don't know if people could notice, but then, because it's it's a wrong color, and so it now looks like my background. All right, so good thing I chose also purple as well. So this was Leona Caldwell's work. She was a local, started off doing ceramics, which these are ceramic on a leather cord. And I think this is either a bracelet or a choker. So you can wear it however you would like. But she also then wound up doing her own fashion and started doing kind of a whole like resort wear in Scottsdale, really in the 50s, and kind of took off in the 60s. And so she was doing such fun stuff. I mean, you can see. So her shop was in Kiva Craft Center, which today is where F&B is, in that courtyard. But she was doing fun things like this. So here you can see more quail. She was known for putting fringe on lots of things. And for my 50th birthday several years ago, we actually had a gallery for the month, and we had all kinds of stuff up. And one of the things we did was I actually had her daughter come in and talk about her mom and kind of brought some of the fashion. And so that was a hoot of a good time. So you can still find Leona Caldwell stuff out there. Some of the ceramics are easier to find than the fashion, but it's all so much fun and definitely is a part of Arizona history. So coming up next week, it's so funny that Niki was the editor-in-chief of Phoenix Magazine. That's who's coming on next week. Muriel from Phoenix Magazine is going to come on. And we're going to talk about how long Phoenix Magazine has been around and some of the kind of quirky, fun things they've done in the past. So that's going to be a really fun show as well. So remember, if you have any questions, you can always throw them out via email or throw them in the chat. It's all up to you. Now, Tom, I wanted to get back to you on your question about dates because I knew I messed up. When I'm going to be at the Botanical Gardens is actually October 22nd and 23rd. So it's the week before Halloween. So so they should be getting stuff out for that. I think actually in the coming, I think next week they said they would start having some of the promotion and tickets available for that. So that will be a lot of fun as well. So remember, you can always throw questions or comments, or maybe you've got a great story that is just right for happy hour. Please share. And if you don't put it in the chat, you can always reach out through Facebook, Instagram, or email. Again, all of you bring me some amazing stories. And so that's the fun of us all getting a chance to learn more about where we call home and what makes it such an amazing and unique place. So I always want to give a shout out to my friends, Chris and Cole, who did that great little video at the intro. Cole wrote the music and is actually, so Cole is actually the great grandson of Leona Caldwell. Correct, Tom. Yeah, the 22nd, 23rd. So as well as always, PJ and the staff at the Valley Ho for coming through and making a cocktail every week. We are now looking at doing a whole show on just some of the cocktails that we've done. So hopefully we can figure something out and make that a little bit more in person as well as virtual. So yeah, so Tom, it's going to be some spooky stories. Because it's going to be one of these like mill around events, I'm probably going to have like a set short rotation and just kind of keep talking about some things, but we'll figure it all out. So kind of excited because I love the Botanical Gardens, and so excited to actually get a chance to be there and talk about history, which I think will be a lot of fun. So as we are all getting ready for tomorrow, I want to leave you all with a little bit of Arizona history. So one of the things that I fell in love with in terms of our history was an event called Mask of the Yellow Moon that ran from 1926 to 1955. And so we're going to end with a little piece that was shown on PBS about the history of the Mask of the Yellow Moon. So everybody have an amazing evening, and I will see you same bat time, same bat channel.
And speaking of extravaganzas, During most years between 1926 and 55, Phoenix College students joined those of the high schools in the Masque of the Yellow Moon, a music and dance pageant featuring literally a cast of 1,000. Staged at Montgomery Stadium on the Phoenix Union campus, the production often attracted national attention with themes of Americana and Arizona's history and heritage. A marvel of logistics, timing, and dramatic presentation.